Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
It's always good to have your company. I mean that sincerely. Tweet me at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. That's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. It's the best way to reach me when I'm live on air. Hello. Hello. Right, we're going to move on swiftly because there's a few things I'd like to chat about before we hear from Bjorn Eriksson in Sweden. Here's a laugh to begin with, dear listener. Why not? Why not laugh every now and then? If you lose your sense of humour, you lose it all, don't you? If you lose your sense of humour, it's all over. Listen to this. This reported by the BBC today. You listening? Pay attention now. This is the BBC. Vital health checks should be carried out in shops and at football grounds to diagnose people at risk of heart attacks and strokes, says NHS chiefs. Now, NHS England and Public Health England are urging the novel approach to get more people to come forward for the over 40s checks programme. Only half of those eligible in England end up getting the regular checks. Firefighters could even carry them out. Sorry. That wasn't for effect, by the way. I genuinely forgot that part of the story. So as well as going to a shop and getting a health check or getting a health check at a football ground, a firefighter could also carry out a health check or even refer patients while they do home safety checks. Right? The health checks were introduced to spot the early signs of conditions such as dementia, diabetes, heart disease and strokes. They look for conditions such as high blood pressure and cholesterol. We'll come back to that one in a minute. But, writes the BBC, because of the large numbers not taking part in the scheme, there are an estimated 5.5 million people with undiagnosed high blood pressure alone. I don't know about you, dear listener, but reading this bullshit, my blood pressure is off the charts. Channel your inner even Jackie Gleason. Firefighters. Large numbers of people are not taking part in the scheme, so we have to come up with sexy ways of testing people. Football stadiums, shops and firefighters. If everybody entitled to the checks, which are offered at least every 5 years up to the age of 74, if everybody got them, we could abate or prevent 9,000 heart attacks and 14,000 strokes over the next 3 years. That's from the BBC today. Yeah, there's a double bluff going on there, isn't there? They don't really want us living any longer unless we're working and chained to their system, right? So what's really going on? What's really going on? One word. Sales. 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 It's all about sales. You see, GP surgeries, now this is including the one I go to, by the way, are nothing more than high street retailers for prescription drugs. That's what they are these days. I know, because I've done my research, that GP surgeries now spend most of their time, wait for this, texting, emailing and writing to people to get them to take this test or that test. To keep us alive? No. Reminding people all the time that you're in this risk category or that risk category. Their aim is to get people to come in order that they be issued a diagnosis. Everybody gets a diagnosis and everybody gets a prescription. But many people, including your presenter, ignore the notices to be tested to come in for a screening. Now, I'm 42 and I've been getting these letters and texts from the surgery for about 18 months. So many people are not doing it, and this isn't good. So let's start harassing people in shops and at football stadiums. When people's houses are burning to the ground, when the firefighters have saved the cat but they couldn't save the piano, The firefighter will then say, listen, while we're here, let's give you a little cholesterol check there, eh? Let's start harassing people. Hound people into taking the stupid test, then tell people there is something wrong with them. And prescribe. Prescribe the living bejesus out of them. And ironically, you've taken a healthy person who nothing was wrong with them. They had no worries. They were going along fine. And now you've told them they have a condition, which they probably don't. And by the way, cholesterol, as explained by wonderful people on this program like Ghislaine Langto and others, cholesterol is a good thing. It's not a demon disease. Prescribe a healthy person, tell them they have a condition, and now you've got them taking something which is actually going to make them sick. That's the double bluff. You'll kill them eventually, but you and Glaxo and Merck make billions. Well, they do. Merck and Glaxo make billions. You, the doctor, get a new car and theatre tickets. You get tickets to the theatre. It's a racket. It's a racket. People are not acquiescing to the bullshit. They're not rushing to get checked up. They're not rushing to get prescribed. So let's get football stadiums, shops and firefighters testing people. 12 and a half minutes past the hour. I take salbutamol. It's an inhaler. Now most of my life I've kept fairly fit. These days I'm very fit. I've never smoked anything. Not even the odd joint. Never even tried it. So I've kept in pretty good health over the years. But I developed an allergy to dust as an adult, and it sometimes gives me shortness of breath, so I get a salbutamol inhaler. It's a blue thing, you know what it is. Ventolin is the brand name in the UK, or one of them anyway. And I go through about 6 of these a year, not even, which is good, because I keep on top of the reasons why I get short of breath, which, as I said, are an allergy to dust. I'm not making this up. A couple of weeks back, when I was picking up this prescription, the chemist asked me would I come into a room with him and speak to me. Went in and said, what's this all about? I have no time for authority, you see, or people who think they have authority. I'm a bit grumpy. So what do you want? He said, the doctor has said that you're not responding to messages, that you've refused to have an asthma test, and we're wondering why you're not using your inhaler very often. And I said, because I don't need it very often. He said, you should be using it more, but you're not. Maybe you've managed your asthma. Maybe you need to go and have a test. And then he said, maybe stop the salbutamol inhaler and maybe take a preventative inhaler, which is a steroid. And then you can have both, but you might find you're using the blue one even less frequently. I told him to fuck off. Without saying fuck off. I said, you're an idiot. I'm getting along fine. Fill the prescription and let me go. It's all about ching-ching, you see. Get him onto a brown inhaler. Get him taking something he doesn't need. Anyway, more on medical matters in a minute. MPs, as you probably know by now, members of Parliament, backed the EU withdrawal bill overnight by 326 votes to 290. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Critics warned that it represented a power grab by ministers. It doesn't represent any power grab. We'll get into this more over the coming days. The bill, which is supposed to end the supremacy of EU law in the UK, will now go on to the next parliamentary stage. It will get another reading. There will be more attempts to change it, with MPs wanting to amend it here and there. Several senior Conservative backbenchers have published a proposed 157 amendments covering 59 pages. We haven't heard the end of this yet. What's it all about? Well, the EU withdrawal bill overturns the 1972 European Communities Act, which, if you know your history, took the UK into the then European Economic Community, or the EEC. So the withdrawal bill overturns that act and also converts existing EU laws into UK law to ensure there are no gaps in legislation and that everything proceeds smoothly. Why did most of the Labour Party, not all, but most of them, and the Lib Dems vote against it? Because they're part of the wider conspiracy to stop Brexit from ever happening. It's just as simple as that. They want a transition period. You know, I was watching all channels today, and senior Remainers like Alistair Darling, who's of course the Labour former Chancellor of the Exchequer, senior Remainers or Remoners, were today suggesting that the transition period might go on even longer than 2022. It should go on. The negotiations should end in 2019. That should be it, one way or the other. But they've already proposed over the last couple of months that we have a transition period after 2019 that might last for 3 years. Now you've got senior figures saying it could go on and on and on, the transition period, meaning we'd never leave the European Union. Now remember, Article 50 clearly states that when it is triggered, the triggering country formally notifies the European Union that it's leaving, which we've done, right? After the vote in June last year, it took us a long time, but we finally triggered Article 50 back in March, meaning we have 2 years to agree a deal. This is the law. And when 2 years are up, there's either an agreement even, or there isn't one. If there isn't one, it's tough shit, Paddy. That's the way it works. When 2 years up, there's no agreement, the country leaves and trades with the rest of the European Union on World Trade Organization terms. That's the way it should happen, you see. But what we've seen already is laws have been bent, they've been broken, even not so much bent, by those who want to ignore the will of the people, to ignore the fact that the country voted to leave the European Union. Why do they want to do that? Let this drag on until so much time has passed that they can say with some credibility, Jesus, it's been years actually since the referendum. Let's have another one, right?